Hello. I've already explained several times that we've entered a stage of development, so to speak, of humanity, of our world, where politics is starting to play an increasingly important role, while the economy has taken a back seat. As funny as that may sound, of course, if there's a crash in the financial markets of the United States, the economy will have its say. But right now, and to make it clear why this is so fundamentally important and why so many players on the political field are making so many mistakes, I'll just list the basic problems. The political ones that exist. I've described some of them on my private Telegram channel. Of course, there was discussion there, with details and nuances, but still. So, first of all, the withdrawal of American troops from Romania and Bulgaria means that it was not possible to involve the United States in a second front against Transnistria. And this shows not only that the United States has a lot of additional tasks, but also that the European Union, together with London, can't handle this particular task. It's right in front of them. They couldn't handle the task right in front of them. And that's also a very important sign. According to Professor Evstafiev, they still might start this operation, but I don't believe it. Not for political reasons, but for economic ones. Evstafiev rightly points out that only Germany and France could do this, and that the initiative should come from Macron, but to do that, bluntly speaking, they have to give money and generally show themselves in some way, which I find highly questionable. Next, there's another factor to consider. The resignation of MI6 chief Richard Moore shows that the UK has ultimately focused its main efforts on the Middle East. Because Moore had a lot of different commitments there, and the fact that his removal means that it's fundamentally important for the UK to maintain as much freedom of action as possible. Still, this is a very important issue, and theoretically, the UK could come back at any moment. The third major scandal in Israel involves a whole bunch of different circumstances, including a resignation, with the subsequent sordid story about the rape of some Palestinian prisoners, involving the chief military prosecutor or lawyer. I'm not sure what the title is in Israel. Netanyahu has already spoken out, saying this is completely unacceptable, but as someone who knows at least a little about Israel, and about everything else, I can say only one thing, which is that this is a devastating blow to the entire political system. Fourth, the war in Gaza continues, and it's absolutely clear that peacekeeping forces need to be deployed there. Where are these forces supposed to come from? Azerbaijan refused. Israel is actively opposing Turkey's involvement, and it's obvious why. Because Erdogan has said many times that he himself is, by nature, a brother Muslim, and Hamas are also Muslim brothers. And on the other hand, who else is there? So, basically, the only ones you could theoretically send in are the United States of America, but they can't be everywhere at once. And then just imagine, in a region where there are countless Houthi drones constantly flying overhead, to actually be stationed there. American soldiers, those. Just think how many people there would want to wipe them out. Next, fifth point. The claim that Turkey definitely won't be involved there is debatable, since there aren't that many countries in the region without an Arab population. Turkey has a little bit in the far south, but it's really just a tiny amount. And this is also a very interesting point. Turkey will definitely be there. Duterte. Further, Venezuela. Most likely, the invasion will still take place today or tomorrow, But there are a whole bunch of different subtleties, including the fact that drug cartels are definitely in on Venezuela. There are still a whole bunch of subtleties. For example, the fact that Rubio, who was basically the main ideologist behind this invasion of Venezuela, is from the Cuban mafia, while the main drug cartels are Mexican. Well, there are also the Bolivian ones and so on. So there are also some nuances here that I don't even try to get into, simply because I'm not familiar enough with all of this to take the risk. But just imagine the invasion happened and Houthi drones started attacking American oil refineries located on the Gulf Coast. There's no defense there, none at all, absolutely none. Some might say the Houthis are too far away. That's just how it seems to you. Again, what's stopping the Houthis from telling drug lords what to put in a chest so that drones, hypersonic missiles, and so on and so forth just magically appear there? By the way, let's note that drones can target more than just oil refineries. Maybe that's the reason that it's 7. Why have so many families of Trump administration members moved to military bases? You have to wonder, do they know something? Moving on. London, of course, might still try to play games with Zelensky and the regime in Kiev, but the front is cracking. And in this sense, number 9 is these very interesting stories about special forces attacks, which are unclear. Why burn, so to speak, the next to last reserve of the main command? Yes, there are very few of these special forces, but each one is extremely valuable because they took a long time to train. To burn them out completely, well, not completely, but at least partially, is very strange. It's very odd. I don't know what's going on here, but I understand that the reasons are political, and that's something we also need to take into account. 10th is Russia's money that's in Europe. Theoretically, there's a strong desire to crack them open. France and Germany want this, but Brussels says we can't take on that kind of responsibility. This is also a very important, fundamental point. Moving on. 11th. This is the story in the United States with the shutdown. Because it's already absolutely clear that it's starting to affect the military, which isn't getting paid, and the intelligence agencies. Well, okay, the intelligence agencies have internal self-financing, but first of all, not all of them do, and second, if they switch to self-financing, then new people appear there who start making independent decisions. Next, we also have Southeast Asia, where things aren't exactly great. Although, of course, it's still much better than in Europe. And then there are lots and lots of little things as well. And now imagine how political figures who have to make decisions are supposed to behave. Taking into account all these factors that I listed, let's say, first level factors, and also a number of second level ones, maybe several dozen, which might not be as well known, but which, here and now, in a specific place and at a specific time, absolutely have to be considered. You don't lose your mind, well, just from all these stories. And all of this is a situation in which, by the way, this is a situation in which it's impossible to make economic decisions. Because every economic decision, let me put it this way, anything truly radical would spark public outrage. A change in the monetary authorities in Russia today would inevitably affect, well, at least 7 or 8 of these points. in one way or another. Well, for example, if only because it would weaken some groups, elite groups in the US and the UK, and on the other hand, it would strengthen others. You see, decisions like these have to be made taking all these factors into account. That's why I believe that. Although, to be fair, a change in the monetary authorities in Russia is also a political decision, not an economic one. That's why I am deeply convinced that, as a result of all these, many of these political factors and the internal conflicts in Russia, which have already started to spill over onto the internet. For example, the story with a certain frontline governor who accused the Ministry of Defense of total corruption. I'm not going to comment right now on whether that's true, what's what, and so on. The very fact that such a story has surfaced, even if not through official sources, says a lot. It speaks to the level of tension. In other words, I see it as a sign of a high temperature, and by no means am I trying to analyze what's true and what's not. All of this shows that the level of tension has reached a certain critical point, beyond which it's no longer possible to go back. Why? Because some actors will start to fall apart. That is, they will either skip a move, which basically means admitting defeat, or they'll make some kind of drastic move. Well, something like, launching some missile somewhere, or something else along those lines. It's easier for Trump because he has a huge amount of resources, and for that reason, he can sometimes afford to skip a move. But, as experts on the American political system note, in recent days, or maybe even weeks, Trump skipping moves has led to other people starting to make decisions. Well, in particular, Professor Evstafiev wrote that although Trump said there wouldn't be any missiles, Tomahawks, in Ukraine, but it's possible that other missiles might appear. Well, for example, missiles also controlled by Americans, but which are technically located on the territory of the European Union. Again, I don't believe in this just yet, but with other, less significant issues, stories like this could. For this reason, I urge everyone to pay very close attention to what's happening around us, because when a turning point occurs, it can have a very strong impact on certain events here and now, even in our own country, although of course things are much calmer here than over there. Well, in a sense, our tension is even higher, but it's a bit different, to be fair. And for this reason, there may be completely unexpected consequences that we need to watch out for. So, on that note, I'd like to wrap up. Let me just sum it up with this phrase. Life is tough for politicians these days. The days when they lived the good life are gone. Today, they live under incredible, very intense time pressure. Thank you. I appreciate your attention.